When it comes to performing under pressure, neural steroids are much more important than testosterone. And I'm going to show you how to increase these neural steroids today, what they are. And this is video 1 of 3. So I'm going to give you some strategies here today. And the second video next week, I'm going to have all of these slides available for download so you can go through them. So if you like what I'm about, consider subscribing and hit the notifications. Now, do you remember, I think it was 2015, Kelly McGonigal, PhD, she talked all about how amazing stress is for the body, right? When we hit it too hard, bad. When we don't hit it hard enough, we lack the motivation and the enthusiasm. So we've got to kind of hit that butter zone there. What I found was remarkable, though, dihydroepiandrosterone sulfate. So you guys always hear me talking about sulfation. Well, this neural steroid needs to be sulfated to do the work for you. So just like testosterone builds up your muscles and, motivates you, well, DHEA does the same thing for your brain. It helps you thrive under pressure. And beyond that, superior military performance. Let me just underscore sulfation here. You remember, I'm always talking about sulfation. Superior military performance. Now, I'm not in the military, but I sure as hell want to perform like those legends. And what about problem solving and academic performance? DHEA for the win. What about those pesky negative emotions? When DHEA-S is in the up position, you're going to feel less negative emotions like guilty, hostility, burnout, anxiety, general old stress. But genes do play into it. Those are my genes. So I'm not very efficient at sulfation, yet I thrive. So that's why you might want to stick around. And this is 1 of 3. So bit of a deep dive in getting these neural steroids optimized. The fountain of youth, DHEA, but there's a couple of other neural steroids that we want to push in the up position too. Like it's not just testosterone and growth hormone, thyroid that gets you lean and muscular. DHEA is doing some heavy lifting too. So let's have a look under the hood inside your brain. So we've got 2 lanes that we need to optimize for. This is the sulfated lane. And we're going to talk about how to optimize sulfation in this video. And we're also going to show you how to shut off stress, adrenaline and cortisol cold in this video. It's really simple too. You don't need any fancy drugs or supplements, all right? And I don't believe in supplements. Whole foods are the answer. So up here, you got pregnenolone. You got an isoform of cortisol here, and it hits GABA A receptors. Boom, shuts down the stress response. And you also got this powerful neural steroid right there. So these are the neural steroids that are shutting down, releasing GABA to keep you calm, an inhibitory neurotransmitter, keeping you calm under pressure. Pregnenolone sulfate, dihydroepiandrosterone sulfate, that builds you up. It's literally rewiring your brain to thrive under pressure. So we need a bit of a blueprint to get this right. Now, pregnenolone sulfate, as I mentioned, you could have some not wonderful sulfation genes, and you don't have to worry about that because they're mine and I thrive. But you also could be like me here, heterozygous transporters. And this is huge. This was released, large scale investigation confirms that this TRPM3 protein, it's a transporter protein. And I'll unpack it on the next slide. So pregnenolone sulfate hits that receptor and then it makes it do work. And if it's not doing work, chronic fatigue. So you can see how important these neural steroids are. We think a lot about testosterone, growth hormone, thyroid hormone. The brain is the control center, legends. It is the control center. So this gene here, TRPM3, even if it's not working correctly, we've also got ones that also tie into it, and I won't drive into that, but just to show you how powerful this gene is, you got your sulfate group on pregnenolone. It binds, hits this receptor, calcium goes in, and then it does work for you. Very important work. But if you've got a bit of chronic stress going on and your sulfation group isn't on pregnenolone, what's going to happen? Not a lot. So we need to do a few things to get that right. And this is calcium gated. Now, I just want to unpack something, and this has been shown in the scientific literature for quite some time. Non-native EMF. So this non-native EMF from the phones or whatever it is, and this is this is all about male fertility. This one here. So this is well elucidated in the scientific literature. So it's opening up these calcium channels, which isn't good. And then it's screwing up everything inside the cell. And it's also hitting NADPH oxidase. And I'll talk about why that's not cool on the next slide. But basically, you've got a bit of DNA damage going on inside your private parts there. But it's not just there. It's in the brain too, in the heart as well. This non-native EMF, not good. That's why I put my phone on flight mode when I'm not using it, when it's on my person or I've got it away from me while I'm talking to you. Think about putting it up the side of your head every time you talk. That's going to, over years and decades, it's not good for your brain, especially when you think of what it's doing to these calcium channels right here and chronic fatigue. All right. So, in a nutshell, this NADPH oxidase, it's stealing your NADPH, right? It's fueling the cell's dysfunction. So knocks fires up, and it's part of the innate immune system. So you're losing the neurosteroids pretty powerfully. And the older you get, incidentally, the worse this becomes too. So in a nutshell, NOx needs to be activated without question. It's a part of the immune system. And when you've got a pool of NADPH, no problem. Your brain can make neurosteroids. It can sulfate pregnenolone and DHEA, and you're going to thrive. But when it gets a bit overactivated there, there's a lot of reasons why that can happen. I'll also show you how to stop this from happening somewhere towards the end. You know, maybe 40, 50, you're kind of over here, and by the time you get, I don't know, 60 plus, the memory's not too good at all. So calcium blockers, you know, when your cardiac surgeon wants to fix your hypertension or angina or your arrhythmias, calcium blockers. So you can probably appreciate how important it is. But as we progress through here, you're going to find out that we're making these transporter proteins. And if you recall from previous videos, our genome encodes for about 20,000 proteins and enzymes, and we're making millions of these transporter proteins. When you got ER stress right here, plus proteostasis dysfunction, you know, you're going to need help with these calcium blockers. So you're left up with big pharma drugs, which isn't helpful at all. So we're going to talk about that as we progress. Now, this is what I call metabolic load, and I'm going to, over the next 3 videos, I'm going to dive deep into it. So next week, we're going to talk about some DNA vulnerability. So you saw my sulfation ones there. So for a lot of people, you know, they might be doing okay in their 20s and 30s. I wasn't. I wasn't doing too well at all because I don't have great genes. But that doesn't mean that's your destiny. I'm 54 and thriving. And I'll talk about how I achieve that as we progress in these 3 videos. So if you like what you hear, drop a comment below, share, and consider subscribing if you like what I'm about. But for a lot of people, it really starts in their 30s up to their 50s. And by the time they're 55 plus, you've got all of these misfolded proteins in your cells, right? And that brings down the speed of the cells, and you got dysfunction. So you're on the big pharma drugs, you're aging fast, and no one wants to get there. So this is the metabolic drag, and there's 4 big buckets that I'll walk you through. But as you've heard me speaking about nicotinamide, adenine dinucleotide phosphate is the game. It's in charge of anabolic reactions. So it's literally rebuilding you inside and out. We have to have this system operational. So here's just a few of the things that it's doing for you. Your hormones, sex hormones, thyroid, all of them, neurosteroids, that's right. And your detox, your DNA repair, dampening inflammation, and also your mitochondrial repair. So this is where we want to be. So you're thriving, you're rebuilding and repairing, you got plenty of man juice and neurosteroids. But over here, You're just surviving. You're just getting through the day. You're up and down, your sleep's all over the place, you've got gut issues, skin issues, brain fog, and you don't feel very well. So NADPH is the currency of anabolic reactions. Your testosterone will be low. Your detox will be crap. Your retinoic acid, which is huge. Retinoic acid is very, very important. It's a derivative of retinol, vitamin A, and we need to convert it. And guess what converts it? Well, of course, NADPH. So if you don't have enough to go around, this suffers, your detox suffers, your gut health suffers, everything suffers, legends. So as we progress in our journey, I've already covered this, and these videos are linked below. How to reverse your old insulin resistance. That's the one I did last week. And I talked all about vitamins and minerals, and that's going to keep your NADPH up. But we've also got to remove these load amplifiers. And that's what we're going to be talking about in the last video. And next week's video, I open up your detox pathways and rebuilding your gut. Now, let's just talk about the brain. This is what I call the balance of power. Just so you know, I used to have panic attacks, social anxiety, performance anxiety. I was a mess, absolute mess. And you know, what happens over time is that cortisol and stress hormones feed the amygdala. So it physically grows larger, and its damn activation potential is always up, so you're always triggered. And you've got an inbuilt brake, ventral medial prefrontal cortex to the amygdala, and defensive reactions. Now, what you mightn't know, this study here, Lazar et al., and a long time ago, 2010, this is a reduction in the size of the amygdala. So her video is on YouTube there, right? So it is possible to reduce the size of the amygdala, to get away from these reactive states and negative emotions and not making your neurosteroids and your man juice and repairing your gut. So over here, where you're under pressure, you've got good heart rhythms, you've also got a little bit of juice for the amygdala, and you've got increased cortical activation, so you can think under pressure, even when your heart rate's doing like 120 beats per minute. So this is huge. Now let's just talk about the stress response. The vagus nerve is how you switch it off, and we're going to be talking about how to activate it. Now, elite sports people, they do it, and you can actually purchase a device to stimulate it. That's just a waste of money because you can do it yourself through breath work. You can activate it. It's no different. It is no different than bicep curls in the gym. Every day that you do it, it gets stronger and more powerful. It's shutting off the stress response. So you got pathway one here, the sympathoadrenal. Milliseconds, boom, heart rate up, dry mouth. You get the idea. You could feel anxious, fearful, or aggressive or frustrated. But then over here, the slow path, cortisol takes over and you feel like garbage. It goes up and up and up and you can't think. You don't know where you're up to because your brain's over here. You got ums and ahs. You just can't articulate yourself, and that's the point. So we got to learn how to shut this down and do the reps, the bicep curls, but in your brain. Now, as I mentioned, next week we're going to be talking about how to fix your gut and what we call DNA load amplifiers. All right, so check that out. Your gut is speaking to every organ in your amazing body. Gut-brain axis. So if your gut's sick, well, you're not going to have a lot of neurosteroids, stress, anxiety, IBS. And then over here, your hormones. So that's your neurosteroids and your testosterone, your thyroid, your growth hormone, but it's replaced with insulin and cortisol. Then your heart. You've got hypertension, you've got plaque in your arteries, and they blame LDL, the lipoprotein. Your lungs, your liver, so your detox goes. Your pancreas, you can't even digest your foods because it releases proteases to metabolize proteins, lipases, fats, and you can't do it. Then you got muscle axis, you can't even pack on muscle. Your skin, eczema, skin issues, and your reproductive organs. So it's a double whammy. So you got your endocrine organs over here, and then it's attacking your private parts, your kidneys, your bladder, your eye, your thyroid. Every system has an access. And I just want to show you one thing here. When I did my training with Daddis in gut health, he's got more letters after his name than I care to count. He was talking all about how stress hormones inhibit healing in the gut. So that's problem one. But as we now know, when stress hormones are up, these hormones are down. Your thyroid, your progesterone, your estradiol, and your testosterone. Now, for men, we need a good ratio of testosterone to estrogen. If estrogen's too low, we're in trouble. If it's too high, testosterone comes down. So as you can see there, we have to fix this problem. And the gut and liver are huge, because if you got a healthy gut, you'll have a healthy liver, you'll have healthy everything. So it really is the foundation. As I've mentioned on previous videos there, the mitochondria, vitamins and minerals are huge. What you see here is what's called an organic acid test, an advanced test there. And you see this here? That's no good, the citric acid cycle. So it's bottlenecked all the way around here. So you're not producing a lot of energy. And to sulfate, you need healthy mitochondria. So remember, DHEA, sulfate. Well, you're not going to have a lot of neurosteroids when this isn't working. Vitamins and minerals are huge. And also pregnenolone sulfate, those neurosteroids, you're not going to have access to them to kick ass. So just to really drive this home, this is your mitochondria, legends. So when we breathe, we create a lot of superoxide, and this is where most of the superoxide is created. And it's a fancy way of saying oxidative stress. You've probably heard that term before. Now, we got these proteins that our body's making, superoxide dismutase 2 and superoxide dismutase 1. Now, this is the problem with the medical system. They'll check your manganese, copper, and zinc in the blood, but it needs to be in the cell. It needs to be in the cell, and that's what we test for. So you can see here, manganese is low, copper and zinc are low. So this oxidative stress isn't going to be taken care of. But if we have manganese, it binds to it and turns into hydrogen peroxide. And then glutathione and all these other master antioxidants come along. And these are proteins in detox, turns it into harmless old H2O. But if you don't take care of it, DNA damage, lipid damage, plasma membrane damage, protein damage, and like that's a protein. You know, we're making 20,000 proteins, millions of them. So this is a bit of a deep dive inside the workings of your cells. So the mitochondria there, superoxide busts out, number one, through the plasma membrane of the mitochondria, and then through the plasma membrane, number two, and then it non-enzymatically acts with nitric oxide, and it forms perinitrite, right? So if you're lacking manganese, then, you know, you're not going to take care of this oxidative stress. So this is why vitamins and minerals are huge, and they've got to be inside the cell where it does work. So if you're checking the blood, there's not enough there. You just don't even know. Your doctor says, well, you're fine because we can see them in the blood, but they're not checking the cell. And that's the layer that we have to check. So let's just look at the gut here. So this is what we call containment, the whole GI tract, all the way through from the mouth to number twos. You get the idea, the whole GI tract. Now this is inside your gut, and this is where a lot of people are. So the mitochondria are in here, and if you don't have the copper, the zinc, the manganese, what's going to happen? Well, superoxide is going to bust out, and you're not going to be able to make this mucin layer, the protective lining of your whole GI tract. So you get the idea, and we'll cover this in detail on the next video. But this is what a healthy gut looks like. So this is the lumen where your antigens are. So like the pathogens and crap like that, they can't really get through because this protective layer there is being renewed and replaced all the time because you have the cofactors to take care of it, and NADPH, NADPH. Then you've got the epithelial glycocalyx that needs to be sulfated. So you're picking up on what I'm laying down. So inside your epithelial cells, they're building all this up. They're building see these tight junctions there? That's a protein. So they're making these proteins that keep the tight junctions tight so nothing can get through. The glycocalyx, it's sulfated, and the mucin layer, huge. And then these anchors here to the extracellular matrix, and that's all collagen. And it connects to your blood supply. The glycocalyx is in there as well. So vitamins and minerals, and we'll cover this on the next video, along with detox. But here's another thing that a lot of people underappreciate. This is why mental stress isn't good for your gut. So cortisol starts the fire. Sorry, CRH starts the fire. So that's one of the stress hormones goes down the vagus nerve, and then cortisol gets a bit out of control. Then your catecholamines like noradrenaline, epinephrine, they really start to just destroy the gut lining there. So this is why mental mental health is really important for gut health. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is what I talked about in the previous video, and this is all about insulin resistance. Now, you remember when I talked about ER stress? So I'll walk you through that now. But when you got chronic high fasting insulin, people call this insulin resistant, but it's not. It's just high fasting insulin, very easy to correct. It's pathological. And the reason why, these terrible bacteria, they cause inflammation, hypoxia, inflammation there, ER stress, and they also block self-cleansing to a very large degree. So as insulin goes up, your self-cleansing goes down. Then you pack on the fat and you got these misfolded proteins that you can't eliminate. So we've got a couple of problems here with high fasting insulin. You've got the ER stress and you have limited ability to self-cleanse. So you see these misfolded proteins, they accrue in all of your cells. So it's like you purchased this home and you're renting it out to somebody that's pretty messy. So you have to come along and clean up the mess. So fasting will do that for you. A lot, intermittent fasting or 2-3 day fasting will do a lot of this cleansing, and it'll also get your fasting insulin down. But just think about what's happening to your brain and your neural steroids. Protein misfolding aggregation in the brain. Common pathogenic pathways in neurodegenerative diseases and mental disorders. So it is absolutely huge. And we've also got proteostasis. So this is a quality control check of all your proteins. So let's just say you need a new transporter or enzyme, and that's huge. I've already spoken about this, and this is getting zinc, manganese, all the micro minerals and vitamins into the cell. So these have to be brand new and working highly efficiently. So your body senses that one of these proteins are out, mRNA starts to be folded, and then it's estimated that 10 to 20% of these proteins are misfolded. No problem. The body's got a beautiful solution for that. You got these chaperone proteins, which tags it for autophagy. So if your fasting insulin is up, they stay there, and you've got that ER stress. And as you can see here, endoplasmic reticulum stress signaling alters these transporter proteins. So impaired transporter proteins, they're accumulating in tissues and organs, and you just feel like garbage. So ER stress, proteostasis, dysfunction increases. It's just, you become suboptimal and you just believe, well, man, I'm just getting older. My memory's not where it should be. Now, do you really think that's what's going on? You can optimize the system. And of course, gut health is huge. So as you can see here, protein misfolding and proteostasis defects. And you don't want to end up with this dysfunction here. This vagus nerve here, it'll demyelinate and you won't be feeling too wonderful at all. So let's talk about what we need to do. So we talked about the two stress pathways, the fast pathway and the slow pathway. So we've got to be able to switch it off fast and powerfully. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, you can get a device to activate your vagus nerve. I just want to pause for a moment. If you're not getting enough choline, choline turns into acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter that triggers the parasympathetic rest, digest state of calm. So you got to make sure. This is why nutrient sufficiencies, vitamins and minerals are absolutely foundational. So if you're lacking choline, you won't have enough acetylcholine to trigger rest and digest. Poor sleep, poor stress response, poor everything. Now, what you can do, Professor Huberman has put out a lot of information on this, and there's been studies done on this, and it is simply breath work. So when you breathe in slowly, so your lungs are empty, you breathe in through your nose to just about lungs full, then a second deep inhale, and then blow out through lips really slowly. That's 1 rep. The more reps you do, the better you're going to become. So you got to do a minimum of this for 5 minutes per day. Now, I do this all the time. I wake up in the morning to make my coffee. I'm doing 2 or 3 minutes then. I go outside. I do a few more of the breaths. I come inside to work. I do a few. Look, I'm doing probably 20 or 30 minutes of these breaths every day. I take it that seriously. So if you're serious about activating rest and digest and making it stronger, this breath work is huge. So if you want to know more information about that, drop a comment below. But Professor Huberman's got detailed information all about that. And you want to do that in the gym too. It's going to keep your testosterone high and your stress hormones low in the gym as well. Now, the vagus nerve, we have to remyelinate it. For a lot of people that are a bit older, it's had a bit of demyelination, right? So you want to think of that as a frayed electrical cord. You can't really send the signal for rest and digest powerfully, and we have to remyelinate it. So this is what we want: beautiful, strong myelination. And the first thing that we've got to do for that is we have to give the body the building materials. And I'll talk about the building materials on the next one. So choline is a main component of it. So phospholipids, a main component of it. Plasmagens, cholesterol. So the myelin sheath needs a lot of building materials to remyelinate. So you need minerals. You need to actually trigger it with that breath work. Then you need optimal NADPH. And again, what's that? Vitamins and minerals. And you also need lifestyle interventions, and that's video number 3. And then over here, this is when it will start to integrate. The reps and the supply gives you that adaptation. So you're literally rebuilding yourself from the inside out. And of course, for the sake of emphasis, optimal cofactors, vitamins and minerals. And I'll talk more about that on the 3rd video. And another really important thing to think about, and we're still talking about vitamins and minerals here, collagen is super important. It's one of the most abundant proteins. About 25% of our proteins are collagen. And if we're lacking manganese, you can't make a lot of collagen. So your heart valve, collagen, it gives it tensile strength and elasticity, like it's beating 100,000 times per day. Think about that. Your blood vessels, collagen. Your adipocytes, they're an important endocrine organ, right? So they're an endocrine organ. Then your bones are collagen. A lot of your bone structure has collagen in it. Your tendons and ligaments, your skin, your muscles, the cornea, the whole skeletal system. It's a collagen story. And what about your brain? Well, the basement membranes, you can see here, so basement membrane there and there. A lot of it's collagen. And this here, collagen. It's giving it stability, strength, and structure. And another thing that a lot of people underappreciate, collagen is a signaling molecule. So we have to also trigger collagen synthesis. And I'll talk about that in video number 3, how to trigger collagen synthesis. So it's not just enough to have all the vitamins and minerals. We have to trigger it, collagen turnover. And the skin. Who wants to age with their skin? You don't need lotions and potions. But if your mitochondria aren't working, TCA cycle, alpha-ketoglutarate, you can see that there, it's not. So you're not going to make a lot of collagen. So you need lots of vitamins and minerals, as you can see. This is retinoic acid. You've got manganese, you've got vitamin C, you've got iron. So you need good iron signaling as well. And one thing that, before I get onto that, I just want you to really grasp this idea. The more reps you do with stress, so that's rumination on negative thoughts, the stronger the brain becomes. So the amygdala gets larger. So you got to really start, and I'll give you more strategies next week on the breath work. So the more reps you do, you're going to be able to trigger rest and digest even when your heart rate is elevated. Now, we'll also talk about this on the next call, but some people have a genetic sensitivity to certain types of food, and lectins are one of them. Now, lectins, they bind to sugar residues. The myelin sheath has got a lot of sugar residues on it. Your gut, your endothelial glycocalyx, it's got lots of sugar residues. So this is Dr. J, one of my good friends, and I've been working with Dr. J for about 6 years now. And as I said, some people, not everyone, but some people are sensitive to lectins. Now, this could be you. Check it out.
The lectin is the big one. That's a 4-fold higher risk of heart disease, even as a plus minus, the SELE.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah.
Yeah. So lectins are going to trigger a lot of damage to the arteries and damage to the gut. I would recommend avoiding grains.
Yeah.
Grains are the major source of lectins.
Yeah.
And his gut's very sensitive to grains also, with the gluten. And he's got a thyroid gene that comes up later with gluten as well. So I would say just take off the grains, And
we'll talk about that next week. Now, you remember me talking about Datus? He's got like 19 letters after his name. When I went through and did his training, he was talking about lectins, and this is what he said.
And then some people have antibodies that cross-react with the thyroid gland. And there's some foods that have been shown to cross-react, like we talked about earlier. Lectins and gluten is another one, for example, for the thyroid gland.
Lectins, gluten, you get the idea. So not only that, lectins will inhibit the remyelination. Now, if you do have a sick gut, the lectins are going to get through anyway, even if you don't have that genetic sensitivity, because the tight junctions are open, the lectins get through, systemic circulation, the immune system flares, can attach, bind to these sugar residues, demyelinate everything. Now, sulfation. Sulfation, here is the engine. So you need a lot of vitamins and minerals and, of course, NADPH. Now, I'm not going to drive into that. We'll talk more about it on the next two videos. But I just want to focus in on the end result of how we make these sulfur groups. So it's PAPs here. So PAPs transfers sulfur to your glycocalyx, wherever sulfation is needed, to these neurosteroids. And it's all driven through the mitochondria. And here's the mitochondria. You see all the vitamins and minerals there. And this organics acid test, bottlenecks. Now, a lot of people don't have to do these advanced tests. What you can do is just follow my lead, and I'll give you this over the next 3 videos. And hopefully this will self-optimize for you, but you could have some other issues. And we call these load amplifiers. And on the next video, I'm going to go into great detail about how to identify, like a detective, by yourself, these load amplifiers. Because these neurosteroids, they're much more important than testosterone, as I've mentioned. So this line up here, natural calm, inhibiting cortisol release. But without the vagus nerve being myelinated, choline, nutrients, everything I've talked about so far, it's not going to happen well. And if you don't have your mitochondria working, and NADPH, which I always talk about in the opposition, the anabolic reactions, rebuilding and repairing you. So how do you increase sulfation? Well, this is the protocol. Down the bottom here, load amplifiers, next week. So if you like these videos, consider subscribing, hitting notifications, and dropping a comment. Help me reach more people. Like and share if you feel like this is worthy of it. So step number 1, UVA. So UVA triggers sulfation. And of course, you need optimal NADPH. NADPH. Insulin, as we talked about in the previous video, I discussed how to start fixing insulin resistance. And it could be low vitamin D. It could be a plethora of different things. And the mitochondria. And we'll also talk about how to increase mitochondria. So you've got a lot of dysfunctional mitochondria. So autophagy gets rid of the dysfunctional mitochondria, and you can make brand new mitochondria as well. And we'll talk about that as we progress. And of course, the whole GI tract, and we have to rebuild the precious glycocalyx in the endothelial cells and the epithelial cells as well. So what I tend to do in the morning is, I fast. I've been doing this for a very long time, but I also do HIIT cardio in the morning because the HIIT cardio will accelerate autophagy and trigger NRF2 powerfully. But if the insulin is up a bit too high, it's going to take a few weeks to bring that down to healthy levels. But look at what it's doing, right? This here, it lowers endoplasmic reticulum stress. So remember me talking about that? It increases autophagy and mitophagy. That's getting rid of that dysfunctional mitochondria, lowers inflammation, and it powers up this TNX antioxidant system. What's this protecting? Your 20,000 proteins, the transporters, testosterone, the sulfated neurosteroids. It's optimizing heme and iron metabolism. Mitochondrial biogenesis goes up, and you're getting rid of the shitty ones over here as well. Glutathione, the master antioxidant. You ready for it? NADPH. Up position. And all these detoxification proteins. So if you don't want to do your HIIT cardio, it only takes me 6 minutes. 6 minutes. And if you want me to share that, drop a comment below and I'll show you what I do. 6 minutes. That's all it takes. On the call next week, I'm going to use myself as a guinea pig. So this is part of my plan. So I want to show you exactly how I've optimized the system on next week's call. But I've got a lot of genetic vulnerabilities. And once we identify them, it's clear sailing. You can thrive. Like I'm 54 and I have never felt better, legends. So as you can see, these neurosteroids, they're pretty powerful. And your genes do not mean destiny. Okay? You can, even if you got dysfunctional SNPs, that's cool. It's not a problem. You just have to identify them. Now, do you need to do these genetic tests? Probably not. But if you struggle, then maybe you might have to do them. And that's the point, right? Because this body, you've only got one. This brain, you've only got one. Like once you understand and learn this, it's set and forget for life. Now, as a 54-year-old man, compared to the average person, I've already lived 70% of my life, apparently. And I plan to live to be over 100 plus. And I reckon I'm going to get there. So I've got a lot of living left to do. And plus, I'm thriving. I've got energy. I just feel amazing. This is what I want for everybody that I help. But we have to understand there's no magic pill. There's no supplement that's going to fix you. It's lifestyle, circadian rhythm. There's a lot of things that we've got to do to optimize the system. But we're told that as we age, we're on the decline, which is absolute nonsense, unequivocally. Nonsense. You can thrive. And it's worthwhile doing this stuff. Look, I've got 4 kids. I want them to thrive. And I've done all of them. I've optimized them. I've got a beautiful wife. So if you take your health seriously, health is wealth. That's the bottom line. Who wants to hit 70 and be in a wheelchair or, you know, with a walking stick or whatever? I want to be still at the gym lifting weights, and I'm damn sure I'll get there. You better believe that. No stone unturned.